views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good evening and welcome to BronxTalk. If you look at your calendar, you know that we're coming around to the opening of school, but the opening of schools also means the opening of colleges. And in the borough of universities, I think there are 14 of them. Test yourself, see if you can do all 14. There are 3 Cuny colleges, 2 community colleges, Bronx Community College and Hostos Community College, but the only 4-year institution in the Cuny lineup in the Bronx is Lehman College. And we are just thrilled beyond belief to be able to present to you the brand new president of Lehman College. And so we will say good evening to Dr. Fernando Delgado. Nice to have you with us, sir.
Thank you, Gary. It's good to be here. It's great to be in the Bronx. Great to be at Lehman.
And we're going to find out exactly what that means to you in just a little bit. But also, he brought with him the Provost of Lehman College, and that is Dr. Peter Nwosu. Nice to have you with us, Dr. Nwosu.
Thank you, Gary. It's a delight to join you.
Let's start with you, President Delgado. Now, we're recording this on Thursday. Yesterday was literally the first day of classes. How fortuitous. So before we talk about a lot of other larger issues, how'd it go? How'd it feel? How'd it feel to be the president of a CUNY institution in the Bronx? My alma mater, let's be honest, and to see students in-house actually for the first time.
So I have an interesting COVID-adjusted perspective. That was, I believe, the 5th time I was physically on campus, and that includes the interviews, which were done by Zoom. And it was really the first time I've been on the Lehman campus where there were students around. And so on the one hand, yes, you're excited because it's a coming back to campus safely, not real dense, but we're coming back to campus. It's the beginning of the school year. But for me, it's the first time I got to experience Lehman with students and staff and faculty on campus, moving around. And so as a person who came to higher education as a teacher, because I wanted to work with students, that was a wonderful feeling. And it's something that I've missed because I feel like I hadn't gotten to know what Lehman was, because it was this object I drove by. Sometimes I would come on campus. There might be a few people on campus. But yesterday was the first time to really feel the campus fully alive, fully engaged. And it's a great feeling. There's always butterflies about the first day of classes for everybody. Maybe there are a few more butterflies because it's a coming back to campus, and how do we do it safely and assure that everybody has what they need on campus. But yeah, it was a pretty good moment yesterday.
That was particularly revealing. I would never have thought, that it would never have occurred to me that here you are, you went through, I'm sure, a somewhat grueling interview process, and yet you hadn't, other than seeing the pictures and walking through, I guess, empty buildings and the beautiful scenic campus, that you had never seen it before with live people. I suppose if you felt that way, imagine faculty and students who, my goodness, they really had to be on their own all this time. Did you get a sense of relief? Did you get a sense that students were like, wow, this is nice?
We took a tour around campus with the chancellor. So the chancellor came to visit us in the morning. Also the first time I met him face to face.
Wow.
The first thing I said to him was, welcome to our campus. The second thing I said, please don't have buyer's remorse already. But to be able to walk around campus and acknowledge students and have them acknowledge us, honestly, I think for a lot of students, it looked like it was coming home. A lot of them looked like there was a sense of relief that things really hadn't changed in the sense that the campus somehow was mysteriously different. They acknowledged that There are differences on campus in terms of signage and the density of the population, but it's still their campus. It's still their academic home. It's still their social home for a lot of students. And I think we saw that sort of, not anxiety, but that hopefulness that comes with the beginning of the school year, and the sense of relief that all the buildings are where they left them when they left campus before.
Other than new construction and new programs, which we're going to talk about.
Absolutely. Now, I will say one thing. I will say one thing, though, and obviously the provost can confirm this, is that like a lot of universities, the notion that Lehman fully shut down is a misnomer. There was always staff on campus. There was a lot of work occurring on campus. You referred to the buildings. I came to visit campus in April when it was shut down to have some meetings with interim President Lemons, and most of the people we saw were construction workers working on a building. But there were still classes going on last year, a minimal number, but obviously there's certain forms of learning, certain fields of learning that it's hard to replicate in a Zoom environment or remote environment, because you either need the physical spaces or the equipment that you really can't replicate at home. You have to come to campus, but that's different than saying the offices are open, people are moving around, and the energy that comes with a new school year. So yeah, yesterday and today, pretty exciting days for a lot of people, I think.
Well, let's bring Dr. Nwosu into the conversation. From an academic point of view, the delivery of a college education is a challenge. How did the students do last year, and how did it begin to unfold? I really realize it's only the first day, yesterday, as the students and faculty came back in person.
I'll share. Thank you, Gary, for that question. I share the same sentiments that the president just shared with you. The planning actually began for fall 2021 for us as far back as April, May, working with our deans, our department chairs, our enrollment management unit to really develop the schedule for fall 2021. But I also have to go back to say that we actually had a joint committee, a reopening committee for the college that was led by the Vice President for Admin and Finance, Rene Rotolo. And that committee pulled together the facilities side of the house and the academic side of the house to really begin to think of how the college would look as we began to increase density. Because the real issue we were dealing with was, how do we really manage an increased number of students returning to campus? And so whilst we survived last year, which was virtually online, the president is right, we had a few classes and a few folks on campus. But we were now beginning to think of, what do we do with increased density? If you look at the modality that we were actually working with, it was a modality that ultimately ended with 44% in-person and hybrid classes. And that's the student you saw yesterday on campus. And there will be more actually coming in. We have about 1,600 students who signed for in-person. And we have about another 11,000 plus who signed for both a combination of in-person and hybrid. So the students are excited. We were very pleased to see them yesterday. I was in one of those high flex classes with them when the chancellor came, and you could see the joy in their faces. There were a few that said, I live in Pelham. I was wondering whether I should come, but they actually came and they were very delighted to be there. So this is the second day, and our folks have worked very hard to really have a seamless transition as we begin to gradually open the campus.
And as I understand, the laptop loan program will remain. You're going to be able to, I'm assuming, enhance the kinds of student academic services that students are going to need. Listen, you know that I'm a class of 76. I can't even imagine having to take class every day and really work at your college career virtually. The college did pretty well virtually, didn't it? I mean,
they did.
I mean, there's a lot that goes into that.
They did, and this is where I have to also commend Cuny Central. The central administration did well. If you recall, they ordered over 50,000 laptops.
Wow.
And this is also where we have and they distributed this across the 25 campuses. We did receive some. I also have to commend the work of our IT division that was led by our Vice President, Ron Bergman, because with him and Student Affairs Division, they developed a protocol that allowed us to loan more than 2,000 computers to students if they needed them. those were available. But it's not just about the students also, it was also about our faculty that needed to have access to these laptops in order to be able to operate at home. We also began to realize that our staff also needed them. If we actually asking them to deliver services, do advising, do admissions, they have to have the tools to be able to do so. And keep in mind that this was at the height of a time when every institution in the country was looking for these computers, and to be able to harness them so quickly to support our students was really amazing. So it worked.
Of course, there are COVID protocols. I mean, we can
yes.
Frankly, as somebody who goes into Lehman regularly because of BronxNet television, I just recently registered, like everybody else has to show proof of vaccination or the negative COVID test, et cetera. President Delgado, let's just, we had said that this was going to be a meet and greet the president. Talk a little bit, if you would, about why this was the right move for you from a personal point of view. You were, out there at the University of Minnesota in Duluth, Minnesota. Seems to be a faraway place, but I think from where people understand your personal profile, there really is a pretty good match here between who you are and who Lehman students are.
Well, Gary, yes, and you should have done my interview, because that's exactly what I was trying to tell the committee and the chancellor. I'm going to work my way backwards. Our provost just signaled a number of people that work with him and for him, either by name or by office, that have helped Lehman navigate with the system support the last, let's call it 2 years, 20 months. And that includes the long planning under tough circumstances, because the data changes every day. So to be able to come to a place where you've got a leadership team that is that strong, that wants to come back to campus, that knows we have to come back slowly, that knows we have to come back safely, that understands that it's not a light switch. We didn't turn it off and suddenly the lights went off, and we don't turn it on and the lights are fully back on power, right? We had to scale down, we have to scale up, we have to do it safely. So part of what attracted me to the institution was you've got a strong leadership team that understands its environment. You've got a group of faculty and staff who are deeply committed to the institution and its mission and its purpose within the Bronx. You have a student population that relies on Lehman, not just because we happen to be in the Bronx, but because it's an exceptional institution that happens to be located in the Bronx and has historically embraced who we serve and why we serve them. And so when you're in higher education, you're looking for an environment where people feel positive about the institution, where they recognize the institution's value and impact, and where people inside of the institution recognize their responsibility to their students and to their community. And so, studying the institution in the fall, submitting my application, going through a multi-tiered interview process, it's as much me learning about the institution as me, if you will, selling myself to the institution or the folks that hire us. And at every step, what I saw was an authentic sense of place and purpose and a commitment amongst the faculty and staff and administration to do the best by the institution and do the best for the students. And frankly, to represent the Bronx in a way that people in the Bronx could take pride. Not simply that we are the only four-year comprehensive public institution in the Bronx, but that we are Lehman College and there is excellence in the boundaries that we occupy. And so incredibly attractive. Now, personally, first-generation American.
You're a first-generation college student. I didn't know if it was humility or whatever that put that in the back.
Well,
For me, you are, even though you didn't graduate like I did from Lehman, you embody who our students are and aspire to be, right?
Yeah. So I'm the children of immigrants. English not my first language spoken in the home when I was a child. Most outside of my brothers and sisters, much of our family exists outside of the borders of the United States. Yes, my siblings went to college, but my parents didn't have those kinds of opportunities. but expected those opportunities for us and expected us to take advantage of those opportunities. And I went to a school, an urban school that was minority serving 30 plus years ago. And I had transformative experiences with our faculty there that have shaped my life moving forward. And in fact, encouraged me not only to complete my undergraduate studies, but set me on the path to be a professor. They were inspirational in that way. And so as a student and as a teacher, as a constant learner, you look for an institutional context that reflects those experiences, that embodies those values. It's hard to find another institution like Lehman that sort of fits in that way.
I was going to say, and here you are. I mean, this fits right in. So that brings us right to Dr. Nwosu. And by the way, Dr. Delgado, I'm really excited about you beginning to meet students face to face, and I'm expecting that you will be able to relate to them, and they will be able to relate to you in ways maybe that we haven't seen for a little while. We've had, I remember Leonard Leaf when I was a college student, and of course Ricardo Fernandez, and most recently Jose Luis Cruz. Those are your three predecessors. But Dr. Nwosu, let's talk about enrollment and students coming in. I guess you're excited because you know the new president. You're excited about building on who we are in the Bronx and who our students are, and having a leader who reflects that. I mean, this is my first interaction with him. He sounds like a Lehman guy to me.
Yes, it does.
I don't know how else to describe it. I feel like it's somebody that even though he didn't grow up in the Bronx like I did, I could sit down and, with a cup of coffee and just talk about real life, which is what people in the Bronx want.
And Gary, you're correct. When he arrived July 1st, he hit the ground running. And that has been really a blessing to all of us as someone who understands the community. You mentioned at the beginning that we have these other community colleges that serve the Bronx, of course, and we draw a majority of our student population, mostly the transfers come from Bronx Community College. What we have actually been seeing is that we set a goal, as I mentioned last semester in particular, we set an enrollment goal. And the result has been very, very fantastic because of all of the things that the president has talked about. We are getting closer to the 14,000 students, which is incredible. Not too far, which is about 91% of the target we set for ourselves thus far. We have about another 5 days to conclude enrollment. But that number in and of itself really does show that our students are excited to come back. They want to join the institution. They want to come to Lehman, which is why they're coming to us. If you look at that number as well as I track these numbers every year, we also have in the largest freshman class, 1,500 students in the history of Lehman College. That's a large number of students. As a consequence of that number, we began actually to work last semester to develop what we call the Learn and Recovery Program. And that was actually informed by data that we were seeing that if we're going to attract that large number of high school students, we actually need to put in place programs to support them. And so the Learn and Recovery was designed to really support those new freshman students coming to the institution. And it was actually led by one of our colleagues, a faculty member, Dr. Elin Waring, and another colleague of ours in enrollment management, Dr. Althea Ford. And so we have had support from the CRISA funds from the federal government, but also we have had funding from a foundation to support this initiative. And this is really a long one-year program to really help our students that are new and coming to the college remain at the college when they join us.
Right. I know that there's great efforts for transfer students, certain students coming out of the two-year Cuny colleges. I think what I'm trying to present, I think students will feel comfortable because this is who the Bronx are. These are Bronx students, et cetera. A little research showed that the lecture halls were upgraded. $1 million came from the borough president. $1 million of infusion of support went to the Mexican Studies Institute. Dr. Nwosu, if you would talk about the new building, the Nursing Education Research and Practice Center. This cuts right to the center of what this society needs, what the Bronx needs. There's a shortage of nurses, and the nursing training is very difficult. Anybody who's been in the hospital before or during the pandemic knows that without great nurses, we have nothing. So if you would just talk a little bit about what the hopes are for this new building, that would be great.
And again, thanks to the Cuny, and thanks to our legislators and the city and the state for the support they have given us for this more than $75 million nursing building. Right. You're very right. Part of what we're trying to do is really to establish Lehman as a center of excellence for nursing education and practice. And you probably also know that aside from our bachelor's program, which is ranked #1 in the nation, the master's program, which is also very solid, we also have begun a doctorate in nursing practice as well. So we have a DNP program at the college. And so this is all designed to support the Bronx, support the need for folks with that particular background and orientation to serve the needs of the community. Construction began already. The president talked about coming to campus in April. That construction, even with COVID in place.
I know, I fly there all the time.
And it has begun, and we're on track to really conclude that work. And certainly look forward to having you when it is completed to be part of the launch.
I'll be there. If you talk to Bronxites and you talk about what they think about and what they believe they need, and I remember after 9/11, many people said they wanted to join the FBI and they wanted to become police officers and all that. Right now, people are saying, I got to get in healthcare because that's what we need. And of course, it's the largest industry in the Bronx. I mean, on and on and on. I wanted to ask, before we run out of time, Dr. Delgado, something that I read in your own background, that you have done a significant amount of work on the role of sport in society. And Lehman, of course, has the incredible Apex building. I have to tell you, if you're a left-handed batter playing baseball at Lehman, you hit that ball up on the hill, you could do very, very well. And certainly if you're a left-handed batter as a softball player, that's the way the field is generated. You probably can do very well. But talk to me about the role of athletics. Presumably, this is going to be something of passion for you, and building not only the athletic department, but using that as a vehicle to help students achieve and do better.
Well, so yes, I have a personal and intellectual interest in sport, and I've been lucky to have faculty positions and research positions where that kind of research was allowed and supported and valued. And so I'm appreciative of the institutions that I worked at that allowed me to do that work. It's interesting and it's fun, and it allows one to combine multiple parts of our lives. Look, in Division III, athletics play an interesting role. We're not a Division I powerhouse. We're not in it for the money. These students understand that they are athletes who participate in athletics, but more than anything else, they are students. That's why they came to Lehman. That's why they thrive at Lehman. But what athletics allows us to do is it's one more venue, much like the arts, that allows communities to come together, campus communities. It allows us an opportunity to open the doors to people from the community to come support these student athletes. At the same time, they allow us the opportunity to go recruit students. It's one more facet, one more dimension of the Lehman experience that we can sell to those students for whom athletics is important. For the students in the classroom, and one of these days, the provost might allow me to teach a class when time permits, because I still love being in the class.
Word there, that's okay. Yes,
it's probably the most selfish act an administrator can do: go into the classroom, because you have to turn off your phone for those 3 hours a week, and people have to leave you alone so you can teach and learn from the students. But I always tell students that I study sports not because just the economies of scale that accompany sports, but I study things like ethnic and community identities. And you can understand a lot about how a community develops, how it has affinities to issues of nationhood and race and gendered identity and sexual identity and religious identity. And sports, depending on how you study and where you study, allows you to enter into a very complex conversation about how those identities intersect. And so, and it allows you to compare things between nations and communities. So I use sports not as a way to celebrate sports per se. People do that quite well without me, but as a way to encourage people to understand how those identities, how their senses of selves play through their activities, both when they're participants in sports, but when they're spectators in sports.
Thank you so much for that, because I personally have been a big supporter of all of these kinds of activities. Of course, Lehman has been a leader in arts and fine arts. I mean, you know, it's all there for you. One of the other things that I have to mention, I was an English major at Lehman College, and then of course went into media, but the media facilities, and BronxNet is very proud of the fact that we've, you know, rebuilt things during the pandemic, and we have new studios. And I was reminded to tell you, the next time you come on our program, we're going to be live and in these gorgeous new facilities, which of course we're proud to be a part of. So Dr. Nwosu, talk to me about even media facilities, and Lehman has just not only BronxNet there, a real 4 TV channels and HD channels and everything else, but really a wonderful media program. And right now, I mean, I'm obviously partial to journalists and the notion of it. Just talk to me about how that enhances, you know, the campus, and you know, why it's important to have it. Maybe I'm an exponent of that because you know, I'm a graduate, and way back when we had analog tape, that's what I was doing in the 70s.
We're actually very lucky to have a person that is well recognized broadcaster nationally, as you very well know, Tom O'Hanlon, with chair of that program, journalism, media studies. And so all of the things that you've mentioned, and certainly the work that department does, has been one that has really enhanced not just the quality of student learning, but also the visibility of the institution. And so that program continues to have support, additional faculty. It has also been growing because of the wonderful faculty members we have there. And some of the classes that they have in person as well as online. I do want to say this because I just in the interest of time, the vaccination.
And then I will give the president the last word.
Yes, vaccination, it's very, very important for us. And I want to underscore the need for our students to really make sure that they're fully vaccinated before October 7th. We want to encourage them to do so that they'll be able to access the facilities on campus. You know, many of those who have come to campus are some engaged in testing, but we have the resources on campus. There's a vaccination van on campus. They can't miss it. And to use the resources we have, get engaged, get vaccinated, upload that in the system so that they'll be able to access the resources on campus. I don't want to miss that, the opportunity to share that information with them.
I'm sorry I didn't ask.
Yes.
President Delgado will give you 30 seconds. You must be thrilled. This is an exciting time to be doing something new when people have been stuck in their homes for all this time.
Absolutely. I honestly, COVID can wear you down, but nothing energizes you like a new challenge. And so moving from Duluth, Minnesota to the Bronx area, taking the helm of this fine institution, and hearing from many people in the communities. I spent a good chunk of July and early August talking to.
We're going to have to run. I'm going to say that challenge and that opportunity is not only for you, but for all of the thousands of Lehman students. Thank you, Dr. Fernando Delgado and Dr. Peter Nwosu. It's exciting. We're going to have you back in the studio next time. And thank you so much for joining us, and good luck, of course, to all the students. Good night. We'll see you next week.